and learning ever since. So, well, now what? Now it won't move. Come on. Alrighty then. Try this. There we go. So as far as looking at different skills to be a successful leader and some things that I have learned along the way, as Julian pointed out, communication is a huge part of being a successful leader. And I'll share an example. One of my coworkers decided that we're going through this type of learning, actually department-wide. It's called the Arbinger training. And it requires us to, or it asks us, it doesn't require, it asks us to go and talk to people that we don't normally talk to. The people in our department that might have jobs that we don't really know anything about. So this one coworker decided he would talk to somebody in our human resources department, learn a little bit about her job, and maybe some things that he could do better for her. So in this communication, one of the things that she mentioned to him was she hates staples. Now, it may seem like a very little and minor thing to anybody, but to her, it was frustration. And the reason why is that everything that comes through HR has to be copied probably multiple times. We are state government. So she had to remove all staples before she makes copies. And that was a frustrating part of her job. So with this knowledge, my coworker came to me and told me this. So everybody says, oh, knowledge is power. Well, knowledge is only power if you share it. So what I told him to do, I said, please share this information with everybody, at least in our Norfolk laboratory. And then I can share it out to the other laboratories in the state. Because in order to help her do her job maybe a little bit more effectively and efficiently, help her by not stapling everything. Put a paper clip on it. And that helps her do her job and get less frustrated. So, and again, when you want to lead, you have to find out about people. Find out how they work and maybe what their needs might be and how I can help that when I'm leading them. Another key point is awareness. And again, being aware of who you are in charge of, who you are leading. Help them maybe be better people by maybe doing something that helps them out. And I'll share another story, and this was me. I actually reached out to somebody in our procurement section. I deal with them a lot with all sorts of things. And one of my biggest things that I deal with them is surplus. We have a lot of surplus in the state and in our laboratory. So I would organize everything and send it up to this woman in our procurement section. And so I thought, you know what, I've never actually met and chatted with her except over email. And my emails typically were ones of frustration because things weren't being turned around very quickly for me. So when I talked to her, she said, you know, Susan, you are not the only one in our system that has surplus that needs to be dealt with. And I thought, you know what? You're right. It's not all about me. Sometimes I feel like it should be, but it isn't. And to know that as a leader is huge. This world doesn't revolve around you. And for her to point that out to me has made me keenly aware. I don't send emails out once a week saying, Can you give me an update? Can you give me an update? I mean, how annoying is that? Well, I didn't think it was annoying. I just was annoyed that she wasn't responding to me. So in knowing that, I have stopped doing that. Obviously, honesty and integrity, your coworkers, your staff need to know that you are going to be honest and have some integrity with them. Relationship building, again, all this ties together. So when you are leading people, again, find out what makes them tick and then help them build relationships with their coworkers. And then moving to innovation. So in the workplace, we have lots of generations. So we have some of this newer generation that is big IT. Usually they know everything about how a computer works. I don't at all. And so being open to new ideas. Let's take, for example, being able to actually do virtual meetings on different platforms. Who would have thought that we would have to do that and so that's part of the innovation and part of the forward thinking that leaders need to embrace. Is it hard? It is absolutely hard. And for somebody like me, I'm a button clicker, so I'll just click around and sometimes I get down a hole and can't get out. But then I rely on other people to help me. So when you're looking to get into a leadership role, look towards mentors. And, it doesn't have to be somebody that has an important title. Your parents can often be, they're certainly leaders, and they can be your mentors. Teachers, I had a professor when I was working on my undergraduate degree. He was in charge of my Organic 1 laboratory. And for those of you who are chemists, organic can be a little bit of a challenge. So as I was working through the lab, I would go to him a lot with, Dr. Potter, do you think this is going to work? And his response to me time and time again was, Susan, I don't know. It looks like it should on paper, but try it. So I keep that in the back of my head as far as, take that leap of faith. And I will say that most of the time in my Organic 1 lab, my experiments did not work very well, but at least I tried them. Nothing ever blew up, thank goodness. But his guidance stays in the back of my head. Certainly coworkers, and they're good people to bounce ideas off of. And then obviously your friends. Again, these are people that you can go to with questions, go to with even, hey, do you think I would be a good leader? What do you think, what qualities of mine do you think I have to lead? So looking at women as leaders, is it harder for women to be leaders? Thankfully, in this day and age, I think it's easier. It has become easier, let me put it that way, than it was 30 years ago. Obviously, it's going to be challenging depending on the people that are in the workplace and the people that you will be leading. There are generational challenges, certainly. As I pointed out before, the younger generations, I think, are used to women in leadership roles. Some of the older generations are still maybe struggling with that. One of the huge things that I had to overcome, both in becoming a supervisor and becoming a lab director, was that I had to lead former coworkers who I considered my friends, and I still do consider them my friends. but we have to be separate. I am a lab director now at work. I certainly can still be your friend, but there's a line. And that is a very difficult thing. I know it was very difficult for me when I became supervisor, because I was supervising people I worked in the lab with. And we would just joke around and have fun. So then I became their supervisor, and I had to, again, take a step back and go, I can't do that anymore. I can't be as close with them now as their supervisor. And then there's always that perception of women being more emotional. And quite honestly, I think this works in our favor. We have more empathy. We have more understanding than your typical male leaders. So I do think that can work in our favor. And one thing that I'm sure most of you have heard, women tend to be better listeners. And that, as a leader, is huge. Another huge piece of advice is to put your phones down. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, I need to talk to you about something. Something's really bothering me. You should not have anything that's going to distract you. Your phone should be put away. I have an Apple Watch. I don't look at it if it happens to ping, because they need your attention. And there's nothing more frustrating, and I know I feel it, if I'm talking to somebody and they look away from me at their phone, their watch, their computer. So be attentive. And as women, we typically are. So I do have a YouTube video. Let's hope that we can play this. And I thought this was an interesting perspective on female leadership as told by a male. So let's see if it'll play.
So it's not that we need more female leaders. It's that we need more leaders who act like females. And women just happen to be better at that. Traditionally male characteristics in leadership are things like decisiveness and aggression. And traditionally female characteristics are things like empathy and patience and maternal instinct. And good leadership has a balance. You have mama and dad. You don't just have one or the other. And so I think that the pendulum has swung too far in the direction of aggression and decisiveness, which is still important. And we need more empathy, patience, and sort of caring instinct in our businesses. Women are better at that. Women understand inherently the concepts of why and purpose better. Women inherently understand the concept of the infinite game better. Men say, well, what's the proof? Women are okay with things that aren't on exact time frames. So I think we're now also in a day and age where women can be women. If you go back 30 or 40 years, sort of as women were starting to enter into the workforce and politics and whatnot, you had this pioneering age where they kind of had to act like men. They cut their hair short and wore pantsuits and didn't wear makeup, and they took on the characteristics of aggression and decisiveness. And more power to them, they paved the way, but those days are gone. Like now I think women can embrace being women, because at the end of the day, the way we respond to a man and the way we respond to a woman is different. I know a really wonderful female leader. She's in the military, so very, very male dominated. And she told me one of her soldiers, who's much better than she is, said to her, when a male officer yells at me, I hear him and it's water off a duck's back, and I go do whatever I need to do. When you yell at me, I feel like my mom's yelling at me, right? So women have to understand that you are different, like than men, and how people respond to you is different. So there is such thing as female leadership. We tend to teach male leadership. But I absolutely think that more of those more human, and this is, I really reject the idea of soft skills. There's nothing soft about them. We have hard skills and we have human skills. We need more human skills in business today. Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so as he said, and I love his example of the military, when this larger man gets yelled at by this smaller female, that he feels like his mom is yelling at him. So I think that is very funny, and it's a very good point. So in closing, if I could say a few things, so definitely be a good listener and find a mentor or two from different aspects of your life. Maybe one that's more professional than the other one, that can help you and help foster that leadership in you. Be proactive, not reactive. That's something that is a very difficult thing to do. I have to work on it almost daily, because we like to react to things quickly. And then you think, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. I have two sons, and as they were growing up, I remember reading something about being a mom and a parent. And they said that rather than saying no right away, which was my go-to, say maybe, let me think about it. So that gives you a pause, so that inevitably they would come to me and ask me to do something when I was in the middle of something and I didn't want to listen to them. So no was my response. If I said maybe, it gave me time to get out of whatever I was dealing with and then think, yeah, that's not a bad thing. They can go and do that. Communicate, huge. And that, again, is something that I know women, in addition to being good listeners, are very good at doing, is communicating. And step out of your comfort zone. So if you think, hey, you know what, I might want to take this next step professionally. So try it. If you don't succeed, use me as an example. It took me 3 times to be supervisor. I learned each time what I needed to do differently. And I will give you the title, and I should have put it on the screen, and I apologize for that. It's a book that we all had to read in doing this Arbinger training. And it's a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. And it talks about all sorts of sides of leadership. It talks about blaming others when it's really your fault. And it will want you to highlight. I've highlighted quite a few areas in there, and go back and refer to those when I need to. So it's a perfect book, and it's an easy read to me. So I'm open to having any questions. If anybody has any, I will stop sharing my screen so you don't have to look. This is all my information, and I do know that this is being recorded. So if you think of something after this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email address is there, my work email, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody over the phone on whatever they might be interested in.